We're starting off with some sound effects today here. Hi, everybody. Welcome to another edition of School Matters. I am David Mustonen, Communications Director for the Dearborn Public Schools. Thank you for taking some time to be with us today. Here again, technology. You know, it's kind of one of those buzzwords. We hear a lot. We hear people throw that word out a lot. At one time, an adding machine, an abacus, was technology, right? So we use that word. We kind of have in our mind what technology is now, but really, it really relates to more about what is that latest tool that we are using to help us do our jobs, educate kids. And so, of course, I remember when I went to school, technology we got this really cool, it was a looping film. So it was about a 5 minute long film. It was in a cassette and you dropped it into this little projector and you got to watch this little short film about birds or nature or science or whatever. So yeah, that's how old I am. So anyway, but nowadays technology is a lot different in our schools, and to help me talk a little bit about how that looks, I brought, of course, a couple of experts in the field of technology. A couple of folks who work right here in our district. Mr. Chris Kenniburg, Supervisor of Network Services and Applications. Chris, how are you today?
Great, David. Thank you for inviting me.
Yeah, thanks for being here today, Chris. And Mr. Bob Attee, who is the Director of Technology and Media Services. Bob, how are you today? How's everything going?
Excellent, David. Thank you very much for having me here today. It's great to be part of School Matters.
Yeah, thanks. I appreciate both of you guys joining us here today too, because technology, like I said, it really is. People have different images in their mind, think about it differently, what it is, and it's really all encompassing. It's a very broad subject, and we're not, today we're going to hopefully try to narrow in on a few specific areas. I just thinking back, even just in the time I've been here in the district, working here in the district, how much it has changed. Chris, you've been here a while. Bob, you've been here a while. I remember when when they first came to the district, it was a lab, right? And we brought kids down to a computer lab, and we had a bunch of computers all lined up, and kids would just, learn the keyboard, right? So it's changed quite a bit. Just start off with speaking about, how long we've been here and our roles here. I'll start off with you, Chris. A little bit your time here in Dearborn, how long you've been here, and your role now, because I know it's evolved over the years.
That's correct. Well, I guess my first exposure to technology in Dearborn schools happened at River Oaks with the Apple IIe computers in the lab there. Quite different than today. And obviously where I really fell in love with technology happened to be in the WDHS video program.
Absolutely.
Back in those days, in the early 90s, the Toaster 2000 was the latest and greatest in digital effects.
And it didn't have anything to do with putting bread or cooking bread, right? The toaster at that was a whole different kind of toaster, right?
Very much so. All about editing videos. And so that's where I kind of fell in love. And then I kind of refocused where I wanted to go after that. And here we are today.
Yeah. And I know your roles changed. When you first start off here, webmaster, you were pretty much just involved in the website. And now your role has changed quite a bit.
Right. Yeah. So back then we were, more of the public facing use of technology. Sure. Involved with learning management systems, things of that nature, some of the apps that the students would use. And currently in the supervisor role, we're kind of overseeing that, helping to make sure that, all the systems that we utilize are running smoothly now.
Yeah, a big task indeed. So, and Bob, your history here, of course, teacher, principal extraordinaire, lots of hats that you have worn, but now as director of media services. a little bit about your role and history here in Dearborn.
Thanks, David. Yeah, it's been a full circle for me. I actually started out in the late '90s as a tech in the district. So those computer labs that you talked about, where we would take the kids to, I installed some of the first Max stations in the district at the time, like that, and then loved where Dearborn Schools was going. So I seen the direction and wanted to be a teacher and work for our district. So I had a number of years where I worked as a teacher at Salina Intermediate, and then saw the direction that we're going and wanted to continue to help us guide in that direction. So I went into administration as an assistant principal at Woodworth, and then followed up by a great run at Duval Elementary as principal for 6.5 years, and now director of instructional technology and computer services. Where working with Chris, we help to keep the district backbone of our technology devices and network going so that all students and staff stay connected to learning.
Well, and I think just to give people a scope of how big of an operation you have, let's keep in mind 2,700 staff members, 20,000 students, 35, 36 different buildings. All of that technology has to be interconnected. All of those people are on devices, if not one, but multiple devices. And so you must have probably 100 or so people, like, because we're a $300 million entity. So a company that would have 25,000 people, 35 buildings, $300 million budget would obviously have an IT department that would have about 100, 200 people working in it, correct?
In an ideal budget, that would be great. We're a lot less than that. But it's not the quantity, it's the quality of the individuals that we have. And boy, do we have a great group that work with us as network administrators, technology coaches, computer data analysts, and of course, our technicians who are filling a lot of the roles that I did way back in the day.
Right. Yeah. And hats off to you and your team. I was joking a little, but hats off to you guys, because really for the amount of work that gets done, and you're looking at a department with, techs and schools and all of that, really tremendous amount of effort going on there to keep the systems up and running and keep everything going. So just briefly, I think it's worth mentioning, because this was quite an undertaking that you guys did during COVID, when COVID hit. I just want to touch briefly on how the technology department responded to that, because really we went from a school district that utilizes technology to a school district that was based on technology, that delivered instruction through technology overnight. Within a couple days, everybody was online. So the work that you guys did during that time was pretty incredible. Both of you can just, maybe just touch a little bit about how that looked, how that happened, the number of devices that you guys deployed during that time, and how that all worked.
Well, I can just say at the time I was a principal at Duval Elementary, and so I can tell you that working with the tech department that's what made everything possible with the pandemic right there, because there was a lot that the department had to really undertake, because we had to develop an LMS that would be able to meet the needs of our parents and students and staff, something that was easy to navigate, accessible, easy to post materials. And so I can say that Chris and the department did a phenomenal job with the turnaround time and trying to get this up and running less than a week to get everything rostered and running smoothly. He and the department did a phenomenal job of getting that running. Then there's the device management side too, where the techs were out in every single building helping to disassemble the Chromebook carts. Our network administrators were making sure that the Chromebooks would be able to run on families' internet, and so that there wouldn't be any barriers there, and also making sure that families would be able to stay safe as they were going through the internet, not filtering or not being able to, making sure that our filter was working and not allowing anything inappropriate to go through. And our principals and staff were handing out the Chromebooks to the families that needed them, so that we had a true one-to-one relationship in the district. So device deployment, learning management system, PD with the technology, with how to use what we had out there, was mission critical that our department did. And I give a lot of credit to everyone in the department for being able to make all this happen in the short amount of time that we did, and for the staff and families that were able to adapt to those massive changes that took place in less than a year.
And really just kind of hats off to our team in that effort. There were a couple of people that you might not ever hear their names because they're just kind of like the unsung heroes behind the scenes. Some have retired. We had two, Tim Thomason and Richard Mask, Sean Williams and Fadia Nahed. All of these people were instrumental in turning on a dime so that we could have the technology ready to go so that teachers could continue instruction.
Yeah, it was quite the undertaking, and just handing out the Chromebooks alone, and then all of that you did on the backside with all the software and the learning management system and what have you. So, and I know that you kind of transitioned into your current role during that time when COVID first hit. Troy Patterson was the director of technology at that point in time, and I know, Bob, you've transformed into that role. So, and fine job you've done kind of keeping that going, that flow going, and keeping things going uninterrupted. So, now we are back to learning, back to in-house learning in the classroom. But the technology needs are still there, and if anything, COVID may have accelerated and pushed some of those technology needs. Maybe even expose some areas that we can do better, some weaknesses that may exist in the system, and things like that. I guess just to talk a little bit, and like I said, we get really focused on the hardware aspect, but maybe talk a little bit about the software aspect. You mentioned briefly an LMS, which is the learning management system, that software tool that teachers use to create those classes. And maybe each of you just talk a little bit about the different software platforms that we're using in the classroom, and maybe even using as staff members behind the scenes.
All right, it looks like tag on this one right here. How about I start a little bit with Google Classroom?
Sure.
And so Google Classroom is all of the Google apps for education that are kind of put together in one big package right here. And so our district is currently using the free version of this. And with that, so we're able to make slideshow presentations with Google Slides, do spreadsheets with the Google Sheets, and then share documents where we can group edit, create policies. So this is something staff can do with creating policies and norms and everything like that. Students can peer edit documents that they've written and share it with the teacher as well too. So Google Apps is a tremendous collaborative type of software. It's a web application that we have access to in the district, and of course it has our emails in there as well too, so we can be in contact with one another. And that's something that we primarily use. There's other applications that we use as well too, like Benchmark, which is rostered through our learning management system called Schoology. And then there's also other applications that we're using, Great Minds as well too, for our science and math as well.
So a lot of what the technology department is focused on too is one, making sure all these tools function, they're rostered, ready for teachers to use. But a big part of that is, you mentioned with COVID and amplifying the use of technology. One of the things that we did was we implemented a lot of things at breakneck speeds, and we needed to do that during COVID. And now it's a matter of taking a step back and saying, okay, we have all this implemented. Now, what is the best way moving forward for the district to make sure that, we have a first-class instructional tools at teachers' fingertips for use in the classroom, at home, and trying to bring all of these systems and platforms together. And so it's not only the instructional aspect, it's also having the backbone and the infrastructure to make sure that they have access to these materials from the classroom, from home, those kinds of things.
And that's a perfect segue into what we've been doing over the past year. So one of the things that we used to have with school improvement plans is there was a plan for technology and what integration would look like and how staff would be able to use it with the students and what we would expect students to be able to learn in terms of skills. And so during the past year, Chris, our tech coaches, Amy Gwiz and Bob Harrison, and I had worked with the Technology Advisory Committee to craft our brand new 5-year plan that was approved back in October 2022. With this plan, we're looking at the network infrastructure, how we evaluate the technology that's out there, and then how we want to improve on the strategies that staff are using in the classroom to promote more rigor and collaboration with students. And so in doing so, as we're doing this, we want to make sure that the plan is very robust because we want all students to be successful. And we also want to make sure that we're preparing them for future needs because a lot of the jobs that are out there today are ones that we haven't even thought of. When we look at artificial intelligence that's really grown over the last couple of months like there, engineering with this area and developing policies is something that our students will need to be familiar with and help to guide in the future.
Absolutely. So, I mean, it's huge. It's all encompassing. That technology plan, is that something that's accessible? Is that on our website that people can go and take a look at to kind of get an idea of what that roadmap looks like?
Absolutely. So there will be a link on the district technology website where we're going to have access to the plan. And so we're also implementing everything year by year. So there's going to be some benchmark goals as we go along. And part of the plan is to really provide a lot of PD that's out there as we start years 2 and beyond like that, so that staff get familiar with the tools that we have available, as well as the strategies with how we can help students to grow with their technology use.
And that training is really key because we're a large district. New teachers come in all the time. And so the teachers that got the training during COVID, they know the tools. A lot of times the new teachers, unless they're made aware of it, they don't know what tools are available to them.
So, and I think that's important that, when parents hear teachers, it's a PD day. What's a professional development day? What are the teachers actually doing? Well, a myriad of things that they're doing, but part of that PD day may be involved in technology, in learning these new software applications and how best to utilize them for their classrooms, correct?
Correct. And that's something we want to make sure that future district PD technology is on the roadmap. We have a lot of skilled individuals in the department that would be able to support with a variety of the different tools that are out there. And so we want to make sure that as we're supporting teachers, we're meeting their needs as well as the different levels of students that we have at the elementary, middle, and high school.
So let's kind of shift gears a little and let's talk a little bit about, okay, now we've got all of these system or software in place that we use to help students learn. We help to develop these classrooms. And I think we'll see probably more and more use of that as you see more and more colleges moving to online platforms. And if we want to prepare our students for the next step, then probably in our high schools, we may see more and more of that online environment. But in order for that to happen, there has to be some infrastructure in place. And then now we're talking about devices. And you guys can talk a little bit about the types of devices that we use here in the district, the numbers that we use. But I also want to talk about connectivity, which is so vitally important within a building. Obviously, Wi-Fi system, Wi-Fi is in place, and touch a little bit about, people always say, well, I can put a Wi-Fi in my house and it works just fine. But our needs are a little bit greater, a little bit more robust. And then when you're talking about connecting buildings via a fiber optic system, we have fiber in our buildings, but that system was put in place in 2003 and 4. So touch a little bit on that. I know I threw a lot out there, gave you a lot to talk about, but maybe we can start with just let's talk about devices first, and then move to that infrastructure kind of situation that we're looking at.
Sure. So do you want me to take?
Yeah. Why don't you take the? Yeah.
All right. So What's happened right there is when we look at the history of devices and everything like that, as you mentioned at the start of our podcast here, we're looking at kids going to a computer station. And so what's evolved over time is instead of having the kids go to the computer lab, now you can have the lab in the classroom. And so while we used to have different types of netbooks, it's evolved now to Chromebooks. Some teachers have iPads in there. So the device is much more mobile. You can take it with you, go to different locations within the classroom and not be set to a fixed point. With our technology advisory committee at the district level, one of the things that we're looking at is how we're able to impact and have a true one-to-one device-to-student ratio and what that looks like at each of the different levels. And so the pandemic, prior to the pandemic, we were looking at what this would look like. And during the pandemic, it became critical for every student to learn. As we're returning now from the pandemic and making our policies going forward, we're going to be shifting in terms of, do students really need to keep these at home? Do they need to have them in school? Is there some combination of both? And the key that we're looking at too is Chromebooks have about a 5-year lifespan, and then they need to be replaced. They're no longer able to be supported, so a lot of the applications that they're able to run, tests that they're able to do, are no longer going to be accessible. So we have to have a replacement plan in place to be able to make sure that kids are able to use these over time like that. We also have to look at the normal wear and tear that's taken place with the Chromebooks as well too. So this is something that's going into the plan, developing a plan to replace them, looking at how they're going to be used in the classroom as well too, to use those Google apps for education, to use Benchmark to go and read on there and to work through some math problems as well too. That's why they've become essential tools.
And just quickly, I mean, and we're talking, if you're talking a 1-to-1 ratio and we have 20,000 students, that's 20,000 devices. Now, fortunately, the Chromebook is a device that is very robust for students to use, but yet it's lower in cost than, say, a laptop computer. So there's kind of the trade-off there. But still, that's 20,000 devices minimum that you're managing. And so quite the task right there to keep all of that going and keep that all online.
Every day's an adventure.
Absolutely. So,
and I was going to say, well, Bob, with his teaching background, instructional background, that's why Bob is like ideal for this role, because he keeps our department focused on why we're all here, and that's educating kids and that instructional purpose. From my point of view, I'm more focused on like a lot of the infrastructure, and like you had mentioned earlier, the original fiber is put in 2003. We have aging infrastructure that is about to be remedied. We have new we have a bid that's out, and so we're really kind of excited, and we're trying to increase our capacity because we obviously know that our current data caps are we want to make sure that we have the capacity for what might be coming.
Sure. Well, yeah, I mean, and people just we keep using more and more. I mean, there was a time where, okay, if I was going to plug my phone into charge, I would plug it in the wall outlet, and then if I had something else, I'd plug that into a different outlet or whatever. And more we don't have to do that. We can charge our phones by plugging it into a USB outlet and that. But the more devices that you put on that system to do that kind of starts to drain the system, right?
A little bit. We do have a lot of capacity currently.
Okay.
But you're always looking for the redundancy and backups so that, what you want to have happen is that there's no downtime during instruction.
Sure.
And, the one thing that we always kind of keep in mind is, there's never a foolproof way. You can only take so many precautions, right?
Right.
And so that's what we do. And if you look at our network, how it's grown, and you mentioned devices, there's a lot of things that we don't even think about that are connected to our switches. Our entire phone system, every CareHawk, every computer, cameras, thousands of Chromebooks. It's staggering how well our network performs. Given the size and the scope of what we ask of it.
Sure. Well, and Dr. Maleko always likes to point out the very famous quote from Wayne Gretzky about he doesn't skate to where the puck is, he skates to where the puck is going to be. And I think that that's what you guys are kind of talking about here, is not making plans for where we're at, but making plans for where we are going to be, not only device-wise, but software-wise, to make sure that we're ready for those things when they're coming.
100% right on that one. And we were actually, it's funny that you're mentioning it. Chris and I were meeting today with our network team as we're looking at our switch and fiber upgrades that we're pursuing at this time. And so this is something that as we look at where we want to go, having something that's going to be able to be around for at least 20 years going forward with the fiber, and at least 9 years potentially with the switches like that. We want to get the most bang for our buck with our investments in technology and be able to really future-proof a lot of what we are looking forward to having available for our students and staff going forward.
So Chris mentioned something, both of you said cameras and CareHawk, and I guess I'd like to touch on that a little bit too, because that's related to the whole security aspect, another topic that is definitely on everyone's mind, given all of the things that have happened over the last 20 years in schools. It has really elevated the level of security and the heightened awareness about security in schools. We have a new system in place, a CareHawk system. It's an emergency notification system in the schools. I think if you walked into our schools and you saw, it looks like a clock in the hallway, a digital clock in the hallway, but that system does a lot more. If just maybe touch a little bit about what that system is about and what does it do, and what we're looking forward to having that system be able to do in our schools.
Sure. So with our CareHawk system, what we want to be able to do is if there's ever any type of alert that a building needs to be aware of, like severe weather, what we want to be able to do is to make sure that staff and students in the building are aware of what's going on, and to be able to differentiate between a severe weather versus a lockdown versus I need to get out of the building because it's a fire hazard like that. So part of what we were looking at is the alert sounds that staff would be able to hear and students, as well as visual images that would appear on the CareHawks themselves too, for those people that might be hard of hearing as well. So we want to make sure we're ADA compliant with everything in doing this, making sure that it's very differentiated so that everyone is aware of what's going on, and also future-proofing, again, our infrastructure right here so that we have something that keeps staff and students aware. With the CareHawk system, administrators are also able to make announcements to alert staff and students to events that are going on during the day through the system, so they're able to speak and you can hear it in the classroom. There's a little bit of a chime before the principal talks there as well too. So it's a great system for being able to really alert staff if there's an emergency, clearly delineate what's going on. And there is a little bit of fun with this as well too, as you can play some music as if there's the Forts and Fight song in one of the buildings that they play at the end of the day like that, or other songs that you might want to hear or have going on while kids are relaxing a little bit during lunch and everything.
Nice. Very nice. And what about cameras? Another topic that comes up, and now that, before they were kind of isolated, but now where camera systems are a little bit different in our schools. And I know we don't have them in all of the schools. It's part of our future planning, but we do have them in our high schools. And how are those utilized?
So we do have, we are working on some plans on possibly upgrading many of the existing schools that have camera systems, as well as bringing that to all of the buildings. The technology department always looks first to save the citizens money. And so we are always evaluating open source software, open source tools that might be able to do something similar to something that we pay a lot of money for. And so one of those things is utilizing, again, these cameras would be put on our network. Now, some of the previous buildings, some of them were on
Analog.
analog systems, and so we want to make sure that we can upgrade all of these cameras so that when cameras go down or are just not working right, we get alerts and our staff can go out and replace the camera instantly. So these are some of the things that we're working towards with the cameras. Better software that the schools can use,
Right.
And just providing a better service to the schools.
Yeah, absolutely. That sounds like, another good plan moving forward, some good things to look forward to in improving that overall safety and security. There's a lot of pieces when we talk about safety and security. Obviously, notification systems, cameras, part of that and play into that. So sounds exciting. A lot going on, a lot of big aspects, a long way from the film loop projector that I used to, in sixth grade, used to be able to watch in the media centers there. Of course, back then we still called them libraries back then, but obviously come a long way from there. Any other things that maybe we didn't get a chance to talk about that is just itching? You're just itching to talk about something, Bob. I can see it in your face.
There are so many aspects of technology integration, strategies, PD that I could talk about. This podcast could go on for hours, but I don't know if our listeners would want to listen that long. But there's so much that we really want to do in terms of providing professional development so that staff can be very effective in integrating the tools that we currently have, what we're looking to possibly adopt in the future like that, and really looking at how to better use what we got in ways that are more critical thinking for students to be able to apply those skills, for staff to really, enhance the creativity there as well too. And so our technology plan is going to be mission critical for that over the course of the next 5 years for providing that ongoing PD. And what we expect from this is that as students are using the software and applications, we want to see that excitement in there, and we want to see that depth of knowledge that they're able to get by using the technology. I mean, technology for the sake of using technology is great, but it needs to have a purpose right there. And when we tie that purpose with excitement, with going deep into detail right there, then we're able to really, students can delve further into the content. They can master it. They're going to understand it better. They're going to want to take part in this. And that's what we want to see from our department.
And on my end, the one thing that's really kind of sparked a lot of discussions in our department is obviously this new introduction of AI, artificial intelligence, and ChatGPT, and what does that mean for students cheating and this and that. One of the more interesting aspects of this are tools that are now being invented that are helping teachers better produce materials to utilize with the students. So, for instance, there is a website that we utilized where we took a YouTube video, and in this example, we just happened to use the required bloodborne pathogen video that every staff member has to take.
Okay.
And all we did was feed this AI tool the video.
Okay.
And it generated interactive questions in the middle of the video.
Oh my goodness. That's awesome.
Did flashcards.
Yeah.
Generated crossword puzzles. And all of these could be uploaded to an LMS and be graded. It's fascinating. It's fascinating.
Right. I mean, and that's where using that technology in a positive way to make our work easier, to make teachers' work easier, is a real asset.
Hours of work in generating those materials on your own, and this was done in a matter of minutes. It's fascinating with this introduction of this new technology.
Yeah, and I think that right away, everyone goes to that. Oh well, how are kids going to use it for the negative, right? To cheat, to have a paper written for them and all that. But I think if we look at it in the positive and say, how can we utilize it and how can we teach kids to use it in a positive way that will actually become another one of those learning tools or teaching tools for us.
Yeah, especially if AI is not going away. I mean, we need to learn how to, live with it.
Right. Absolutely.
A win-win.
Yeah.
And the key is how to leverage AI along with any other evolving technology that's going to take place within the next 5 to 10 years. As we look at how technology has grown, the use of cell phones and everything over the last 20 years. You used to carry the old brick with you and everything like that. Now you can get your email, you can text, you can, call people. If you still want to go and do that, you can take photos in there. And your cell phone now is better than the computers that we had 20 years ago like that. So my question is, where are we going next? And how can we better prepare our kids for that future?
Sounds like another episode of School Matters is just teed up right there for us, Bob. Thank you so much. I think we will have to have you guys back, and we can even explore some of that. I know that a couple of folks in your department, Bob and Amy, do their own podcast as well, right? And provide some help for staff. Is that correct?
Yes, their podcast is called Architects of Learning.
Okay. So people can look for that on their favorite podcast site as well, Architects of Learning. So if you're in the district, that'd be a great tool for our staff to utilize. So we'll get a little plug in for them. Let them know that I plugged their show for them here on ours. So, gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us here today. We really appreciate you taking some time, share some of that fascinating world that you're involved in and how it integrates into the learning. Because really, as always, everything we do here is all about Thank you very much, Bob, Chris, for being here. Thank you, everybody, for taking some time to be part of our show here today and listen or watch, whatever you may prefer to do. We have lots of episodes planned for the future here for School Matters. And again, just want to thank everybody for taking some time to spend with us here in the Dearborn Public Schools.